Welcome back, viewers at home. Now, conversation as intended is taking a different direction, but the guest is still the same guest. I am joined by Irfaan Mangera, who is going to be taking us through a conversation around a constitution reviewing and what it means for the larger public and how you can play a role in terms of being part of this constitution reviewing. Sounds scary, sounds exciting. However way it may be, let's find out more from Irfaan himself, who is joining us from the We the People South Africa, and he is the head of education at that specific organization. Assalamu alaikum, Irfaan, and jazakallah so much for joining us tonight.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Such a pleasure to be here with you all.
Now, for the viewers who are hearing We the People SA for the first time, can you tell us a bit on what the organization is about and the work that you are currently doing as an organization?
Absolutely. And shukran for having me and discussing this important moment and this important process. We the People SA was established in 2006. It was under the Constitution Trust. And this trust was there to establish an education program to deepen an understanding of the Constitution of South Africa. A stat that worries me and many of the people I work with is that 51% of South Africans only know that there is a constitution. And this means that there's no sense of understanding fully what's the Bill of Rights, what are the various sections that exist in the Constitution that protect us as ordinary citizens and as vulnerable people against the types of power that we see in society. And so the primary work of We the People SA is to ensure that we protect and uphold the Constitution, recognizing that it's a living document and it's subject to changing, and that this Constitution was a product of the people, by the people, and ultimately for the people. So it employs different ways and methods of teaching and training. On Saturday, for example, we'll be launching a Saturday school, which will incorporate working with the Constitutional Court and justices of the court. And this will be with school learners to make sure that younger generations understand that their role, their rights, and their responsibilities as active citizens. Other opportunities also include encouraging people to visit Con Hill, which is a place that has so much of historic and current value, not just from the painful past, but of the promise of what kind of future we can build.
Now, just for context, before my next question, is that the National Assembly, together with the National Council of Provinces, has mandated the Joint Constitutional Reviewing Committee to seek public submissions in accordance with the Section 45 of 1C of the Constitution and the Joint Rules of Parliament to invite written submissions from the public on the annual review of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa. And just taking into consideration your previous response, I think my question now, we know with the Constitution that exists and the Bill of Rights, there's a lot that's being infringed in terms of rights to education, rights to housing, and so forth. Why is public participation important in the constitutional reviewing process, and how can ordinary South Africans make their submissions, and what kinds of inputs is the committee actually looking for?
So it's important to start on the premise and where this was established. The principle historically has always been that the Constitution is a living document, and it was a product of people's inputs. Thousands, in fact, over a million people contributed by shaping this Constitution. It started between 1994 to 1996, in which the Constitutional Assembly was put together by 490 people elected to serve South Africa. Those 490 people then put out public calls in which the values of transparency, of openness, of participation to make democracy work was established. Since then, this review process has been ongoing. And it's important to say this because I think with misinformation, there's this sense that this constitution was just a product of the West or we just inherited it from somewhere. This constitution is recognized globally because it has been such a broad-based, the largest public participation process South Africa has had. And so to pivot from that point on the history to the current moment, this is an opportunity for us to realize if we see something that we want to change in the Constitution, whether it is a clause or a section, we have the ability to influence it and submit it through Parliament for review. Because we should not do something that is against or behind the backs of people. And that was the principle that was established by 490 in 1994 to 96. This process is part of that, to make sure Parliament every year gives an opportunity to the public to engage and to make sure that there's openness and transparency in how we can review that. What type of submissions, you may ask? Any submissions. I mean, the Constitution has been amended 18 times, the most recent being to sign language being added into as an official language. This was a significant moment. And for people who have disabilities, this recognizes their full rights as full citizens of the country in which they're meant to be protected and supported to live full and dignified lives. So if you have an issue or that you think the Constitution doesn't actually address, which it's possible, you have an ability to submit it for review. The committee will then utilize that input, assess it on whether it has legal merit for the Constitution, or it may be that, for example, you mentioned education. It could be that someone says, I want the curriculum to change. But the curriculum changing is not particularly focused within the Constitution. That's the departmental issue. And so they will then, defer that to the department. They'll deal simply with the issues that arise for constitutional amendments. And how this works is that both that committee will then review, analyze, do a legal sense check, but also do public town halls and participation processes in which they will go to different provinces on the report that they put together. That report will basically signify what are the key issues that are coming up from South Africans that need to be addressed. And people will have the opportunity to comment on them, to share their views, to think about it deeply. And I say this because it may be that as an individual you have something to add, or if your organization or your community feels that it's not, the Constitution needs changing because it's not protecting their rights. There's an opportunity for all of you to share in reshaping the Constitution. And this, again, reiterating that it happens annually, so it's not an impossible task for us to realize.
Unfortunately, Irfaan, we have run out of time, but we are hoping if the opportunity arises for us to revisit this conversation. After all, the deadline is the 31st of May, and I think it's quite important that if it's something that happens annually, it's important that we educate our viewers and ourselves included in how we can be part of those change makers. But Jazakallah so much really for joining us this evening and just giving us that insight with regards to how we can partake and your organization itself, as well as the importance of the Constitution and the history behind it.
Shukran for having me. And if anyone has any questions, please feel free to follow We the People SA _ on social media. Happy to take it and respond. Shukran jazeelan. Assalamu alaikum.
Viewers at home, that was Irfaan Mangera sharing in terms of the sad stats in terms of how many people are aware or are actually knowing of the Constitution.